Okay, well, welcome everyone to the City of Santa Barbara Fire and Police Commission December 16th, 2021 special meeting. We're going to start out with item number 1, which is call to order. So Carol, you're on.
Okay. Chair Stedman.
Here.
Vice Chair Rodriguez.
Here.
Commissioner Allman.
Here.
And Commissioner Travis Teague.
Here.
Great.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. And to anyone in the public who's watching, are there any changes to the agenda?
I have not received any.
Okay. All right. Let's move to item number 4, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion for approval of the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second? I'll second that motion. Let's take a roll call vote.
Chair Stedman.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Commissioner Allman.
Aye.
Commissioner Travis Teague.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so moved. Do we have any public, anybody with their hands raised from the public, Carol?
Let me check. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak? Please raise your hand. I don't believe we do at this time, Chair Stedman.
Okay, everyone must be shopping. Are there any items of old business that anyone would like to discuss or bring up? Okay, we are just briskly moving through this agenda. We are now on item number 7, which is new business. Are there any items that any of the commissioners would like to bring up? Yes, Vice Chairman Rodriguez.
Yes, and I think it'd be great if we can maybe hear more of your thoughts on this, but I was wondering if we can add to the January agenda. We're going to be welcoming 2 new commissioners, Barbara Anderson, who has extensive experience in emergency operations and crisis management. And then through ACT, she has knowledge of responding to the needs of homelessness. Dr. Louisa Wood was also appointed, who's a behavioral specialist with SB Unified and also a member of the Community Formation Commission. Since this is Chair Stedman's last meeting, we're going to need to nominate and vote for chair, vice chair, and liaisons. So I'm wondering if we can add that to the January agenda, and then possibly, Chairman, we can add maybe conversations about extending the liaison role to include harbor, but then maybe also airport police as well. Airport police and fire, I think. So those are, I thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's been a missing element.
Oh, sorry about that. I apologize for interrupting. Continue.
So that my question was, can we add that to the agenda?
Are you asking the commission?
Well, I think so. I have 2 questions, and I think this may be Attorney Doimus, where you might, I might need to hear from you. But if we can add to the agenda the appointment of or the nomination and voting of chair, vice chair, and liaisons, and then a separate item there's been a lot of conversation in the Community Formation Commission about the role and powers and authorities of the Fire and Police Commission. And since we have two new commissioners, I'm wondering if we can have a second item on the January agenda that really just, goes into discussion and explanation of the charter and the powers and authority, and that would include the role of the liaisons.
I think you're muted, John.
Sorry about that. We can definitely provide a presentation on the brief tutorial of the powers of the Fire and Police Commission, kind of the history. No problem. I'd be happy to give that. And of course, we should definitely schedule the election of a chair and a vice chair and the liaison starting January to preside over those meetings. The one thing we can't do, we shouldn't have a discussion on, looking at increasing the purview of the commission to look at harbor and airport patrol. And the reason for that is because there already are two commissions that would fall under. There's a harbor commission that includes everything all harbor, and that would include a harbor patrol. And there's an airport commission, and that would include, so while they are peace officers, you have to recognize that this commission is strictly for the Santa Barbara Police Department and for the Santa Barbara Fire Department. There are separate commissions that deal with the airport and the harbor. So those would fall under the purviews. Now it's different for the Formation Commission. I understand that conversation is a lot different because that's talking about, do we do a review board that encompasses all level of peace officers within the Santa Barbara Police Department? That's obviously worth discussing and deciding, if you want to continue on that and recommend that in a report. But in terms of reviewing, this commission reviewing the airport patrol and the harbor commission, that would not be allowed because that would be in conflict with the charter. Because this commission has strict powers over the police department and the fire department, and B, it would conflict with two other already existing commissions that fall under those purviews. So that's why we couldn't do that with this commission.
I have a question. I have a question on that. I don't think the intent was to get involved in those commissions, but to have relationships with them for a conversation.
Right.
I suspect that's okay.
Information
sharing.
There are some times where you have multiple commissions have a meeting, right? Public meeting where you have, these conversations shouldn't take place in private, obviously, but they should take place in the public. And sometimes you do have a special meeting where you have like a conversation on that, where you have, a joint meeting of two or more commissions. That would be appropriate to look at down the road to do so, correct. But at least to let them know what this commission's been working on, or maybe even appropriate, the Civilian Formation Commission to have those meetings too with those boards of commission. Or maybe the Civilian Formation Commission could have the members could have a meeting with each commission, right? They can talk to the Fire and Police Commission, they can talk to the Airport Commission, and they can talk to a Harbor Commission. But just, so I'm sorry if I misunderstood that. I just want to make sure that we don't, just to be clear, we don't have review power over those departments. So that's all.
Yeah, that's not, was that your intent, Vice Chair? I think you were mentioning separately about reviewing the charter for this particular commission. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then including, I guess I was thinking we would be having this discussion next meeting about what the role is and just clarifying it.
Right. And then separately to liaise with, Harbor Commission possibly and Airport Commission possibly, right? Because they have, similar operational components. Is that right?
Sure, but yeah, and I think that's the part where we would be sort of discussing what that would look like, because even our liaisons with fire and police on this commission hasn't really been clearly explained what a liaison would do that's different than what the chiefs do when they present. So I think just having more conversation and clarity about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Commissioner Allman, really mentioned the essence of it. And that's just, opening up the lines of communication, having conversation, because, the men and women in the Harbor Commission who are performing, fire and law enforcement duties and within the scope of their jobs is of interest, right? I mean, there are joint operations that occur. So I don't know. I mean, I was naturally curious to know what was going on at both departments at the time of my initial appointment. So anyway, thank you, John, for your input, as always.
I think
maybe-
Chief Malakian has a question
Yeah.
or a comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez and Chair Stedman. I wanted you to be aware that there are some discussions that are currently just getting underway with respect to, particularly with the airport department. There are some both legal and operational issues that are going to need to be addressed. Probably would be a matter for another agenda. If I could have it probably until February, I might be able to report in more detail to the commission at that time.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. Are there?
So just for the purpose of minutes, my request was to add 2 items on the agenda. One is the voting of the chair, vice chair liaisons, and then the second is a brief tutorial of the authorities and history of the Fire and Police Commission.
That seems very, very clear. Are there any other items of new business?
I don't know if you can consider it new business entirely, but I think the review of the policies, rules and regulations, I don't think have been looked at for quite a long while. There's some issues in there that we can easily correct, but we need to look at that, and that could be down the line a little bit, but that's something we could. I think.
I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, well, sounds like the commission, your work for the new year is already taking shape and form. So it's good to see. Any other items of new business? All right, let's move on to item number 8, first responder climate survey discussion.
So Chief Malakian, please feel free to jump in on this, because I think you probably have more knowledge and experience around this than I do. But I had asked for this to be a conversation with the widespread adoption of community policing across our nation. The interest of law enforcement agencies conducting climate surveys or community surveys has grown as well. And many departments like SBPD that engages in community policing want to hear from community their perspective on how the department is doing. These surveys tend to provide descriptive information that goes beyond typical comp stats and can be used to help departments get reliable feedback from community about perceptions of performance, and can also help the department understand how they can respond to significant community issues. I'm speaking specifically about, let's say, the homeless challenges that we're facing and the oversight discussions. And rather than just solely focus on law enforcement or the police department, I thought because homelessness crosses both departments, that this could be used as a community survey to to see how the general community perceives the service of both the fire and the police departments. Yeah, and so my question is, has the city done this before? Have they provided or offered a climate survey or community survey? How did it go? Is this within the purview of the Fire and Police Commission? Do the chiefs think that this type of information would be helpful for their departments?
So Chair Stedman and Commissioners, I'll take the liberty of going first. I have done this. These kind of surveys are of value, but they really do need to be done professionally. So it is not it's not the police department or the fire department, posting a Survey Monkey on its website. I mean, you really need to bring in a professional organization that's doing it. I don't have any problem with it. They are informative. I've done them in Pasadena and I've seen them done in Santa Monica. In fact, Pasadena, we used to do them every other year. That went on for at least 3 cycles while I was there. So it is informative to see what the community's issues are, but it was a cost item. It was not. The only other caution, if that's the right word that I might use, is we are in the middle of, and I know you're aware, the Oversight Formation Commission has talked about doing similar things. And I don't know what methodology they intend to use. They've had a couple of different discussions, but I wouldn't want those 2 things to overlap. So that would just be my thought on it.
Well, I know that the Community Formation Commission really wants to do this, and it was decided that it wasn't within its purview because the commission is charged with researching and making recommendations, and the larger body decided that a climate survey or community survey was not part of that. So I think it would be helpful for the, I think it would be appreciated by the Community Formation Commission. And I think it would be helpful because the challenge that we have is that Santa Barbara City hasn't had one significant event that called for an oversight body to be formed. It's a preventative, not preventative, but a proactive response. And it's important that the city council adopts recommendations that are specific to our community needs, and without having this background information, it might be difficult for the council to understand how the community feels about law enforcement and fire response versus how they feel about certain recommendations being presented. So that was my other question was, does this commission think that it would be confusing for the public to get a recommendation presentation from the Community Formation Commission and then a survey from a separate commission? Like, would that be helpful at this point? Would it be hurtful or confusing and a waste of resources? Or should we wait until the recommendations have been formed and see if the city decides to do a climate survey instead?
Well, I certainly would not want to be in the position of appearing to adjudicate on the question that you asked, because it would be outside my purview. I would have some concern about whether or not a properly done survey could be completed by March or April, when I believe Oversight Formation is supposed to bring their recommendations back. And the only other sort of thing I might add to that is that, and I think you've raised it in other forums, is that this city has multiple communities, and that's where the necessity of having an appropriate methodology to capture not only people's perceptions, but what specific issues are of concern to what specific neighborhoods. And in Pasadena, there was the surveys that were done were in parts. There was a larger sort of generic survey that would apply citywide, and then at least 1 year they broke it down by council district to try to identify specific neighborhood concerns. Although if memory serves me, they only did that once because it raises the cost significantly in terms of trying to figure out how to get that. So I think, and I want to be clear, I think there is some value to that. Not just some. I think it can be very valuable, but I think the timing right now could be challenging.
Mhm. So would you maybe recommend tabling this conversation until after the recommendations have been presented, or just holding off in general?
Well, I think at some point, I suspect that we're going to want to do that anyway. And I think it's probably unfortunate that as part of, creating the Oversight Formation Commission, probably would have been a good idea to do this survey at the same time.
Mhm.
And the other part of, we have to find somebody to contract with to do it, and determine what the funding source is. So I think, assuming that the Oversight Formation Commission is on track for the spring, I would, and seeing what recommendations they bring out, I might suggest trying to wait, or at least, I'm bouncing around here because I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It might be interesting to find out what such a survey would cost and what the timing is. I'm making some assumptions about both of those things. And I also don't know how the fire chief feels about this.
Mhm. Chief Nichols, do you have thoughts or experience on a fire community survey?
Chief Males.
Sorry, males.
That's okay. I don't have a lot of experience because I'm new in the position. I do know that we are conducting a study of our own right now, very much geared toward fire response, not so much, community-based, more of how are we doing and forward-facing toward the community. How are we as a fire department, and where do we need to improve? So that's what we are actually doing, a really significant study this next year. I'm not aware of the fire department really doing a community survey in the past. So I would be really interested to learn more about it.
So how does the commission feel? Thank you, both chiefs. How does the commission feel if I just did some background research, find out the cost, the timing, and see if there's been similar surveys for the fire department in other similar cities?
I like the idea. It wouldn't hurt to do some research on that. I don't think it costs us any money up front. Just check with some agencies that have done it. And then, as I think Chief Melekian said, that it would be post the commission, the other commission's meeting in the spring. I don't know. It's difficult to put an answer on it, but I think looking into it is a good idea.
Okay.
I concur. I think looking into it, gathering information and facts is a good idea. I also agree with Chief Melekian that it may be a little premature and possibly could be confusing to some people if it came from two different agencies. And since the formation committee or the group is pending, I don't think that there's any harm in waiting, but I do believe that gathering information and being ready is a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to help, guys, but I'm, if you need any help, Vice Chairman Rodriguez, call me on the telephone and I will be happy to help you survey and gather that type of information.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
I mean that sincerely.
I'm also happy to help you, Commissioner Rodriguez. Just let me know what you need.
I will. Thank you both.
Okay. So this display stops at item number 8, Carol. Is there a next page?
Hold on. Oh, are you? Oh, there we go. Did that change?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Magically. Magically. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion on item number 8, Vice Chair or anyone else, we'll move on to item number 9, which is my favorite part of our meetings, the Fire and Police Liaison reports. So I'll offer up that there is no police liaison report. I think, expansion of the community involvement with the police department and reports from other associated commissions in the city have provided enough information. So Chief Malecki and I and Commissioner Travis Teague haven't met together in that forum for the last 2 cycles. So I don't have any fresh report unless Commissioner Allman does.
Yeah, I had a fairly lengthy discussion with Chief Males the other day, and some of the things that I learned from him, of course, was, I think an uptick in responses, actually both fire and medical and all the other things associated. But I'll let him address that when he gets up and make some more comments on that. But there's a lot going on in the city right now, and I stay certainly on the fire department side. I stay in touch with it, and also police. But a lot of good work being done out there.
I'll miss your reports, John. Thank you, Commissioner Allman.
I keep them short.
Exactly. Succinct, very succinct. All right. Commissioner Travis Teague, do you have anything you want to offer?
I do not at this time, but thank you for asking.
Sure, absolutely. All right, let's move on to item number 10, which is the police department update. So Chief Maleckian, you're on.
Mr. Stedman and commissioners, I usually try to give you the previous month's CompStat report, the crime data. But because this meeting was early, I had it written down here to inform you regretfully that the November report was not ready yet. However, it arrived 15 minutes before the meeting started. So in thumbing through it, just very quickly, because I haven't had a chance to look at it in real detail. Year to date, violent crimes are essentially where they were last year, at about 2%. Homicides this year are flat, and robberies and rapes are down. Aggravated assaults are up slightly, and property crime continues to be a problem. It's up about 9%. The bigger issue, quite honestly, facing us, and it's one we have less control over, is the number of fatal traffic accidents. We have had 5, and possibly there was a serious accident yesterday that is expected, has a high probability of also turning into a fatal accident, which will then be the 6th fatality in the last 5 weeks. And there were 3 before that, so we're at about 8 year to date. The common fact, I mean, there's no one thing, but speed and driving under the influence seem to be the two biggest factors. We are going to put out some safety reminders, basically about speed, and the accident yesterday involved two of the accidents, actually three of the fatals have involved motorcycles and scooters. And one of them, the person wasn't wearing a helmet, and another one, the person was wearing a helmet, but it wasn't buckled. And in both cases, there was significant head injuries. But that quite frankly is our main issue that we're dealing with, particularly in the holiday season. I will say, as an aside, with no data to back it up, that in talking to other police chiefs in the county, there seems to have been there's a sense that, to quote one of the police chiefs, that people have forgotten how to drive because of COVID, because people are reporting increases in stop sign violations, red light violations, so pretty basic stuff. So we're going to take a look at that and see if there's something concerted we can do. But right now, our next step will be a kind of a public information, a public service announcement, just to remind people about this. I've got a couple of other little things, but I don't know if there's any questions about that or the crime report. And I apologize that I've not done any analysis on this month's CompStat. So,
Chief, do I remember reading, did we have some organized smash and grab incidents in our city?
We had one, and we don't, that appeared to be a group of juveniles who may have been sort of copycatting what they saw on the news, but that does not appear to be an organized LA or Bay Area group.
And go ahead, John.
I just had a question, more a comment than a question, but I've noticed, and maybe everybody else has, the number of electric bikes going on in town. And I've personally seen a lot of the younger, I'm thinking high school, maybe junior high folks riding these bikes without much regard. And I don't know if there's ever been a outreach to these companies that sell them, that counseling folks or the adults that buy these for the young kids, how to operate, because I've seen some real wild stuff. And I don't know if that's showing up, Chief, in your stats about electric bikes, but I can see a big wave of issue coming if it hasn't already arrived.
I have not heard anything about that, but I will look into that and see what, if anything, is going on with that.
I think they're great, by the way. They're just used properly, and they go as fast as 20 miles an hour. So that increases the issue with younger folks riding a normal bike. It just exacerbates the issue over and over. But I do like the idea of the electric bikes, but just a question.
If you give me 5 seconds here, I can at least tell you about where bicycle accidents are compared with. Yeah, collisions involving bicycles are up significantly from last year, but there is no breakdown about whether or not it's electric bikes or conventional ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
The only other two things is just some personnel matters. Both Commander Todd Stoney and Sergeant Warren Holke are retiring from the department. Their last day is tomorrow. And effective on Saturday, there were 4 promotions. Lieutenant Ken Krishner is promoted to commander. Sergeant Casey Corbett is promoted to lieutenant. And Officer Oscar Gonzalez and Officer Brian Kerr promoted to sergeant. All those promotions will be effective on Saturday. And that concludes my report.
I
I
was
had-
just going to, too, I attended your outreach on the west side at the church on San Andres 2-3 weeks ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
Really cool, really nicely done, and met a couple of folks that I hadn't met before, a couple of officers and part of the PAL group too. So that was really cool. Want to see it on the east side if we can get them over here sometime.
We're working on that. But thanks to both you and Commissioner Rodriguez who were there.
Thank you, Chief.
And Commissioner Stedman, thank you for your service on this commission. It's been a pleasure to work with you this year.
Likewise. Likewise. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you for your service. All right. We're ready to go to item number 11, which is the fire department update.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can see me okay. Carol, can you put up the first slide? I do have a really short presentation. A lot of it is going to dovetail with what Chief Malekian was saying. So I was going to talk to you a little bit about our incidents, calls for service, what we're seeing as far as our trends right now. One thing is I would call this structure fire season. Wintertime is when we usually get our structure fires, and summertime is when we usually get our wildland fires. So we've had a couple of significant structure fires in the last couple of weeks. So next slide, Carol, or first slide, I should say. But first of all, as Chief Malekian said, Chair Stedman, thank you so much on behalf of the fire department and the entire city of Santa Barbara. Thanks for your years of service to the Police and Fire Commission. We really appreciate it. I know monthly I've really enjoyed our interaction, and I think you bring amazing professionalism and energy and positive atmosphere to fire and police. And I personally have felt very welcome, and I just appreciate all you've done for us. So thank you on behalf of the fire department.
Oh, thank you. I deeply appreciate that. Thank you very much, Chief. The feeling is mutual. And you know, I haven't seen you around in the neighborhood recently, but it's going to happen now.
Yeah, exactly. Now it will.
Now
Yeah.
it will.
Yep.
All
You
right.
live right up the street from my mom, and that's where we've kind of run into each other over the time, but I guess our paths haven't crossed lately. So I will definitely be seeing you. Next slide, Carol. So I wanted to start with talking a little bit about our command team. I know that in the past, in the last few meetings, I've let you know that I've been working on assembling the team. As you know, just over a year ago, we had I've talked to you ad nauseum about this. We've had our #1 and #2 chiefs retire. So I bumped up to chief, and then I was in need of an operations chief. And so I brought in, as I've mentioned to you before, I brought in Brian Fetterman from the Lompoc Fire Department to serve as our new operations division chief. Brian has hit the ground running, doing a great job, is being well received by our community and of course by the crew. He's a very, very quick study and has jumped feet first into the new position, which is just amazing. And then I did share with you that I was going to be appointing Ryan DeJulio as our new fire marshal. Ryan was an Inspector 2, and due to retirements and vacancies, Ryan bumped up 2 spots. He went from Inspector 2, past Inspector Captain, up to fire marshal. And once again, couldn't be more proud of Ryan. He has started just like I said with Chief Fetterman, hit the ground running and has enveloped himself into the role of fire marshal. We've got some big items on the agenda for the role of fire marshal. I'm going to talk briefly about Senate Bill 9. We'll talk about the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. As you know, the State Street Advisory Committee is in motion. So the fire marshal is going to have a really heavy footprint in the city of Santa Barbara over the next few years. So Ryan's up for the task. He's a lot younger than me. He's got a little bit more energy than me, which is great. So really appreciate him stepping in. You know that we've had Yoli McGlinchey as our OES manager for a number of years. She continues to serve the community. Ron Lichty is our business manager, and he'll be remaining on as our business manager. Next slide, Carol. And The command team is rounded out with the battalion chiefs, and we have a total of 4 battalion chiefs on the city fire department. 3 of them are assigned to shift. So Jim McCoy is the A shift battalion chief. Mike DePonce is the B shift battalion chief. Robert Mercado is the C shift battalion chief, and Mike Hoos is the training officer. The training officer, Chief Allman, can relate to this or Commissioner Allman can relate to this as he was chief. It would be great if it was just training officer, but that's probably the busiest position on the city fire department. You're training officer, safety officer. You often back up on major incidents. You still go out of town, work as a shift battalion chief, go out of town on fire is a really pivotal and important position. So that's our command team, and we'll be going into the new year of 2020 with everyone in place, which is great. As is typical for the end of the year, we've seen a couple of retirements in the captain ranks. Captain Kathy Sizemore retired, and Captain Barrett Hoffman also retired. So right after retirements come promotional exams, and right after that comes hiring. So the next few months are going to be really busy for our department with numerous promotional exams and a really in-depth hiring process. So we are going to be busy the next few months. Next slide, Carol, please. So a little bit about incident updates. Chief Malekian spoke about vehicle accidents, and I'll talk about those just a little bit. Very typical over the last few months is that our traffic accidents have been increasing. If you remember, one of the statistics I gave during COVID was that nationwide traffic accidents were down 40% across the nation. They are back up. We've had a number of serious vehicle accidents over the last few days. We've had a couple of fatal accidents. We also had 2 rollover accidents within about 12 to 18 hours of each other, right at the same intersection. So Anacapa and Korea resulted in 2 traffic accidents that were luckily not serious as far as injuries, but did result in rollovers. And as Chief Malekian said, unfortunately, bicycle accidents, it's most unfortunate that people either aren't wearing a helmet or don't have their helmet buckled. As soon as someone gets kicked off a bicycle, that helmet goes flying before they hit the ground. So we have had a number of people in the community seriously injured. We've also had 2 significant structure fires over the last month or so. One occurred on Spring Street, the 900 block of Spring Street, and unfortunately resulted in the displacement of 17 people out of that house. So Red Cross had a challenge with trying to place the personnel or the people, and our personnel helped with of course, retrieving belongings, et cetera. But that was a very significant fire. Also, we were greatly assisted by the police department. We had a police officer that was just a couple of blocks away when the fire broke out, saw the smoke column, and was instrumental in assisting with a rescue out of the house. So very appreciative of our partners at the police department. So again, what's wonderful about having police out on patrol is that they see stuff as it's happening. And first arriving unit was a police officer on scene. This last weekend, we also had a fairly significant structure fire on Myrtle Avenue. Excuse me, it came down as West Victoria Street initially. People saw smoke and flames, and then it was narrowed down to the 500 block of Myrtle Avenue. We had a condo complex that had a common attic. Fire likely started as a result of a chimney fire and then spread into multiple units with a common attic. So we eventually had 3 units that were involved. We had to displace, I should say 3 families were displaced due to the fire. And there's some pretty extensive damage. So I guess the upshot of what I'm saying is that the fire department has been really busy. Again, this is what I would call structure fire season. The reason I call it that is as temperatures go down, heaters go on, electric heaters go on, fires in chimneys, people are cooking a lot more. We get kitchen fires at this time. For the firefighters on duty, we always dread the Thanksgiving morning fires and the Christmas morning fires, and they inevitably do happen somewhere in our county. But this is a really busy time, and people are out there holiday shopping, and more traffic equals more traffic accidents, et cetera. So the upshot of it is that our folks are really busy right now. Next slide. Okay, I wanted to share with you just for a few minutes about what our major projects are coming up. I've kind of started calling them wintertime projects, but this will be our projects coming up for 2022. And I know that I've spoken with you a bit about them, so I won't spend a whole lot of time. This will just be a really brief overview. We are in the final stages of approving a contractor for our community risk assessment standards of cover deployment analysis. I touched on this just for a second earlier. It's a study of the risk that our community faces. What does our community see? What types of emergencies does our community see? And are we poised and ready to handle all of those emergencies? So this study should be commencing early 2022. I expect it to be done in about 6 months. We had 5 companies respond to our RFP, and we're in the final stages of selecting a vendor at this point. I also mentioned that we're going to be going to a GPS or automatic vehicle location-based dispatch system. And I know that I've spoken with you a bit about this, but we are reviewing the mapping system that we're going to be using, and we're expecting just after the first of the year to start testing this. As is necessary in emergency services, we don't just throw a new computer dispatching system at the community without doing significant testing. So we will likely be testing to make sure that it is recommending the right units for the right call, based on location. We'll be spending a lot of time on that over the next few months. We'll also continue to implement our strategic plan. In 2019, Chief Nickel began the strategic plan. And I wanted to add one thing regarding the question I was asked earlier. Part of the strategic plan did include a small component of community surveying. The consultant that came in to begin our strategic plan did hold a community meeting, and the community was asked what's important in the fire service, everything from EMS to wildfire protection, et cetera. And the community helped craft our strategic plan. And so our strategic plan has 8 initiatives, and we are looking at, or we are currently implementing 4 of those initiatives, which includes employee wellness, looking at our fleet, improving our communications, improving our training, things like that. So that will continue for the next few years. As you know, prior to fiscal year 22, the City Council approved our Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And then right after that, our fiscal year 2022 budget was approved that allowed us to add a second defensible space coordinator. As I've mentioned, we have a defensible space fire services specialist that handles the wildfire suppression assessment district. We were able to bring in another defensible space inspector to assist with the city. And they also have a wildland specialist. His name is Mark Vontillo, that is working with both of them. And the mighty team of 3 is doing great work in our community right now. So I'm going to show you a couple slides toward the end with what we're doing. One issue that you may have learned about very recently is Senate Bill 9. Senate Bill 9 was approved by the state legislature this last year, which allowed for increased homes being placed on parcels. It allowed for lot splits, and it allowed for additional buildings, residences to be placed on existing property. So you could actually put a second structure on a piece of property. You could also split your lot, and you could also add buildings on that lot. Just very recently, this last week, council approved an ordinance which really limits the ability of homeowners in what we call the extreme foothill or the foothill region of Santa Barbara. It really limits the building that they're able to do. In other words, we enacted a provision along with the building official, which is going to limit the building that can be done in that area. As you know, the infrastructure in that area is critical. We have very narrow roads. We have a hydrant system that is excellent, but spaced out. And the question is do we have the infrastructure in place to be able to put a larger number of people up into that area of Santa Barbara? So council was able to weigh in on that, and we had the ordinance passed this last week. The city's also doing a website upgrade, and so the fire department will be upgrading our website over this next year. And so you'll see a very different presence online. It's a huge project for the city. We have people in each of the city departments that are part of this. And so you'll see a different face on the website, or face of the website, I should say, in the next few months to a year. And then one of the things I wanted to share is that you've likely seen a really significant increase in our social media presence. And especially around the holidays, you've noticed that we are putting out safety messages that have everything from driving safety to holiday safety, including, you know, Christmas lights, electrical, that kind of thing. The things that we typically see as far as fires and injuries, you'll see that we're putting on our social media pages. So this is kind of what we're concentrating on over the next year. But just to close out, I wanted to show you a little bit about what we're doing for the community as far as wildfire protection. So next slide. So as I mentioned, the council allocated an additional position to us, a defensible space coordinator, and or inspector, I should say. And council also authorized $100,000 for the fire department to spend on fuels remediation or mitigation. These two pictures are from Honda Canyon, or the Honda Valley area, which is up by Miramonte. As you may know, this canyon extends all the way down into the backside of about the 1400 block of Cliff Drive. It's a very large canyon that goes up and then backs up behind Mira Canyon and really terminates at Carrillo Hill and La Cornilla. This is the first time, to my recollection, in my almost 30 years here, that we've been able to get fire crews in. We're doing a little different situation. We really can't create defensible space around some of the houses, but what we're able to do is really drastically decrease the fuel load in areas of that canyon. So one thing that's just amazing to me is that our fire department is able to work with the CAL FIRE crews, the hand crews. And so when the CAL FIRE crews, when they're full-time fire crews, we have crews based out of Camarillo or Ventura area, and then we also have crews up in the San Luis area. We can bring a CAL FIRE crew in for minimal cost, and they will bring their entire crew in and work for us for the day. So just last week, as an example, we had a CAL FIRE crew working in Honda Canyon, and we had a CAL FIRE crew working above Foothill Road. So we had two CAL FIRE crews working for us. They come in and do a phenomenal job for us, and our personnel watch them and make sure that they're doing exactly what we're looking for. So again, this is, you can see the ocean in the background. Just a couple of examples of some piles that we're accumulating. We're not going to burn the piles. They'll mulch the piles up and basically, like I said, just clean up and decrease the fuel loading. Next slide, please, Carol. And here's an example of what we're doing in multiple areas of the city, but this happens to be in the Wildland Fire Suppression Assessment District. These pictures, the picture on the left is a before picture, the picture on the right is after. What you'll notice is this is not moonscaping, okay? When we say we're coming in and we're clearing vegetation, what we're doing is we're decreasing the fuel loading, and we're also decreasing what we call the ladder fuels. So the picture on the left, you'll see that there's a lot of material down on the ground. There's leaves, there's branches, there's duff. You'll see that there's a lot of fuel loading right on the ground. And I think you'd agree with me that a fire that began, say, in the dead oak leaves that then got into the shrubs that would get into the trees, that's what we're trying to prevent. So you'll see the picture on the right is way cleaned up. And so we're really decreasing the opportunity of a fire to start and spread in the area. So that's an example of what we're doing. So when people say, you know, you're coming in and you're mitigating fuels, that doesn't mean that we're cutting everything down. We will cut away from the road, but we'll get a buffer away from the road. We'll cut 3, 4, 5 feet away from the road, and we'll cut some of the understory so that we can get our fire apparatus through. But those two pictures, I think, really are representative of what we're doing in the community. So that's just a little picture of what we are doing. This kind of work will continue. We are limited seasonally. Of course, we're limited with rains. You know, we're not going to have hand crews out walking muddy hillsides, cutting brush in the rain. We're also limited environmentally. There are bird nesting seasons, so we have to be cognizant of that. But we're going to be working up through January, and then we'll be working a little bit in the spring. But we've got a lot of brush to take care of in the city. And then, of course, it's a revolving door. We can't just do it once and leave it. We've got to come back every few years and continue to clean the process. So it's kind of like building or painting the Golden Gate Bridge. They start at one end, they paint to the other end, and then they start over again. The same kind of thing happens with fuels mitigation. We can't just do it once. So it's an ongoing project. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. I just kind of wanted to let you know what we're doing. In the January meeting, I'll be taking a little bit more time and letting you know what we will be doing for 2022, just kind of a recap of what I've just mentioned to you. And then I'll also present our annual response time compliance and call volume, et cetera. I'll present a 2021 annual report to you on response times and what the fire department is seeing and what our calls for service are about. So that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Chief, I probably should know this, but the Honda Canyon, is that bordered by, well, it is bordered by private land, but is private land in that canyon, or is it city owned?
There is some private land and there is some city owned. Yeah, it's kind of a combination of both. Great question. And one thing I didn't mention, which I'm really glad you let me know, it's considered a high fire hazard area. And even though it's what we would call coastal, and in fact, that is what we call it, is the coastal high fire hazard area. You think of the mesa as the Foggy Mesa, but it's there is some threat in there. In Honda Canyon, Elings Park, the backside of Miramonte down into Weldon and Arroyo Road, areas like that, there's definitely fire potential. So where we can get in, we will. But great question. It's a combination of both. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of, we're really not able to create a true defensible space around some of these homes. Excuse me, just because of the way that the topography is. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But anyway, we're getting it done basically, and it's going well. Really proud of my crew.
The one other quick question is the Myrtle Avenue fire, it was a chimney fire, I think you said, and was that a zero clearance fireplace by any chance?
Commissioner Allman, the investigation is still ongoing. I haven't heard exactly what the cause was. I did hear that initial units that went on scene had a well-involved chimney fire that had extended into the attic. So I can return and let you know, but I know that the fire investigators are still working on cause and origin.
Cool, thanks.
Chief Nails, I am part of the SBX Regional Action Plan meetings that take place weekly. And last week, the general manager of the Hilton reported that 5 fires along the railroad tracks behind his building occurred within 1 week. SBAC and City Fire, it seems like you all responded very quickly to that and really mobilized to do some preventative fires in that area. But I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about the evening encampment locations and if that's creating a higher public safety issue for the surrounding areas.
Commissioner Rodriguez, thank you. Great question. We have been seeing an uptick in fires along the railroad tracks over the last few weeks. You are correct. We've had a number of them. We've had fires behind the Hilton. We've had fires behind the Fest Parker Hotel. And so what we have done is we're working with the police department to increase our presence along the railroad tracks between Carrillo and Calle Cesar Chavez. Just met with my fire marshal this week, and they're working with the police department to work on a dual presence, if you will. We're looking at going out and making contact and trying to educate the area, the homeless camp, the people in the homeless camp, and let them know, that we are seeing fires and what we could do to try to make it safe for them. But you're absolutely right. There was a couple last weekend, and it's unfortunate, but you are correct, by the way. We get on these fires very, very quickly. We do have our station 2 is basically a block from the railroad tracks right at Milpas Street. So our response time to these type of fires are literally in the seconds to just a couple of minutes. But to circle back to what you're saying, I have tasked my fire marshal to have our fire inspectors tie in with the police department for what I guess we would call it directed patrols or directed interaction with people at the homeless camps.
And this might be like the unicorn magic question, but what, in your opinion, do you think our city can do to help mitigate this type of public safety risk? And I think this might be a question for Chief Melekian as well. I mean, particularly these issues, because they're warming fires. They're not, and it's not a typical 24-hour occupied encampment. They're evening warming fires. So what do you think our city can do?
Well, Commissioner Rodriguez, first off, I get that they're warming fires, but unfortunately, our municipal code has some pretty stringent guidelines on fires. So having warming fires outside of approved containers, not in a city park, that kind of thing are illegal. But also we understand that they truly are warming fires or they're cooking fires. So as far as the fire department, a lot of what we're trying to do is education. Our inspectors that go out, they talk to them, they talk to the people and say, look, see, this area is a hazard, or this area is a hazard, and don't cook in this area. We're finding propane tanks. We can't take them from them, but we can figure out when we see this and this that it's likely they're gonna be using it for cooking. So we try to provide education, but I will defer to Chief Melekian because he's more up on as far as any kind of enforcement.
So commissioners, as you know, I mean, my solution to this is my scope has gotten a little bit narrower in the sense that with the opening of the Rose Garden and the closure of some of the bigger encampments, we have tried to be a little bit less tolerant of these campsites and the use of these fires. As Chief Mayle said, we do know that they are warming fires, but the argument that there's no place else to go is actually a false one for the most part. PATH has sufficient beds at the moment. The rescue mission is not full. And we have been doing outreach and offering services for quite some time. I think we will continue to do this. I was going to share with the commission, I didn't know this was going to be a topic, but one of my personal frustrations is that all the millions of dollars that came down from the state grant to help deal with homelessness and to provide services, et cetera, included a specific directive that law enforcement could not be funded through these grants. And so we have continued to do the work, but we do the work at cost to the general fund. And I think I'm hopeful that going forward in the upcoming year, there'll be a recognition that law enforcement does serve a critical role in trying to move these people out of these encamped areas and into services.
Thank you both. Is there anything that you think the commission can do to advocate for either additional funding for your departments, or one thought I had was advocating to the county supervisors to open or activate the warming shelters earlier. So maybe 5 degrees earlier. So instead of waiting for 35 degrees, waiting till 40 degrees. But then I'm also hearing that PATH and Rescue Mission has available beds. So that may not be an encouragement for folks to seek shelter. But what ideas do you think that the commission can do, either on a city or county level, to support your work in keeping the public safe?
I would just advocate, if I could, and as you know, I worked for the county for several years before I came to this position, and I know this issue of discussing the threshold temperature for opening the warming shelters has come up before. I think it is previously it's really been a cost item. Whether or not this additional state funding might mitigate that, I don't know the answer to that. But anything that you can do to advocate for stronger city-county collaboration, I think would be helpful.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Are there any other questions or comments from the commission?
Chief Stedman, I have a comment, please, for, I'm sorry, Chair Stedman. I have a comment for Chief Males. Earlier this week, Hospice of Santa Barbara needed help with their Light Up a Life tree of remembrance at the Laboro, and we contacted Brian Fetterman, and Joshua and some of the other crew came over and helped us. So I'd just like to express gratitude on behalf of Hospice and thank you and them for their service to our community. So often we forget to say thank you. So I think it's very important and very vital that we remember to say thank you. So thank you. And I've written a note to them, but if you'll express our gratitude on behalf of Hospice.
Commissioner Travis Teague, I actually saw your email this afternoon just before this commission meeting. You know, it's actually a really fun thing for the fire department to do. We also did the lighting in front of Station 6. And when we're asked, I mean, we can't go out and do, you know, private residences, but we do have a couple of trees in the community where we're happy to send our firefighters out. We're happy to put the ladder truck up. We're happy to help string lights and bring a little bit of holiday cheer to the community. So I was really, really pleased to see that we were able to do that. So thank you. And I know that our firefighters really do enjoy coming out and helping.
Are there any hands raised from the public, Carol?
No, Chief Stedman, or Chair Stedman, sorry. We'll promote you to chief today.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. Excellent. All right, so let's move on to item number 12, which is staff communications. Vice Chair, do you want to give an update?
Yes. So I attended the NACOL, the National Association of Oversight of Law Enforcement conference. I just returned a few hours ago, and that was in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. Lieutenant Sean Hill and our City Attorney Ariel Colon was there as well, and it was a very impressive conference. And I think I'm still just sort of digesting, you know, all the information and everything that I learned from that. But I do have to say that it really brought home how Santa Barbara is just in a very different place than many of the cities who are starting oversight. bodies. We are in a fortunate position that we have city leadership that supports the idea, that we haven't had a single tragic incident that called the public for this possible adoption, and that we have commissions like the Fire and Police and the Civil Service Commission that are doing some of the duties that an oversight body would take on. So I just felt like we're starting in a really good place, and it's nice to know we're in a preventative, or I shouldn't say preventative, it's more of a proactive position. So that was really it was just a good feeling to know that we're in that place. And I want to just really thank Chief Malekian for being as supportive as he is, and not just because it's our city, but because of his own experience in progressive policing. And he was quite well known in that conference, so it felt good to drop his name. And then also I wanted to give an update on the Community Formation Commission. The commission had its last meeting of the year last week and will resume again the first week of January. As a reminder, the commission agreed to a conceptual model of a hybrid entity that would include components from an auditor monitor focused, a review focused, and an independent investigation when necessary. Basically, it's a focus on policy and procedure to look at trends and stats. It's a focus on the comm stats that we received from the chief, and then if there was a significant complaint filed to the police department, that this body would review that complaint or investigate that complaint simultaneously to ensure that proper procedural justice is occurring. We have gone through the process of brainstorming all of the important elements of each of these components, and work groups are currently meeting to summarize those brainstorms and in a presentable fashion, and then the entire commission will approve or amend those recommendations. After that occurs, presentations and education groups will be presented to the public, and we're relying on the public to give feedback on if they think that these recommendations are appropriate or necessary. And then based on that feedback, the commission will make amendments before sending it to City Council. And because community feedback is so important, the commission contracted with a research firm to design and implement the survey. So after every community education event, whether it's through video, in person, online, members of the public will be given a link or a hand paper with survey questions to complete. And that research firm will help us analyze that information. So when that is ready to come out, we're gonna hopefully rely on this commission to make sure that we're touching all parts of the community to make sure we get appropriate feedback.
That is such a lot of work. Thank you for your report and for your travel and for your preparedness in your, not only your role as a vice chair on this commission, but as a colleague. Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
That's my honor.
Are there any other staff communications? Commissioner Travis Teague, do you want to announce any other matters that you're involved in that you would like to share with the public?
I think that I shared about the hospice Light Up a Life, and that's going on, and there are lots of things happening over the holidays. I would just encourage the commission and the public to join forces and support our community. there is a lot going on in the world. And if ever there was a time when we might use love and care, this is that time. And those of us who live here in Santa Barbara are quite blessed, whether we know it or not. And so I would just encourage everyone to take a pause and do something for someone.
Very well said. Any comments, Commissioner Allman?
Oh, the only one I was commenting on was, and I had mentioned to the chief, Chief Malecki, was their outreach program that I attended, and it sounds like it's going to come to the east side too. It was nicely done and a lot of great information put out. And I think, you know, I wasn't there for a long period of time, but I think it was well attended, and met some of the officers that I'd never met before, but I've heard them on the radio. So I was really happy to hook up with them and see them. Yeah, a good job done by all on that particular day. And we'll see him here on the west side, hopefully, as he said, you know, maybe after the first of the year, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and one last
Chair-
check. Are there? Go
Chair
ahead.
Stedman, we can't end the meeting without just really thanking you for your leadership this last year and your leadership even prior to this last year. So thank you for serving our community in this way and for leading this commission.
You're quite welcome. It was an honor.
We'll stay in touch. I know we will, because we'll always have a question that will come up, and always
Yeah.
good to come back and, well, what did you do and how did you do it? And I think that'll be great. So let's stay in touch.
100%, guys.
I agree. And
100%.
thank you for your mentorship. Thank you for the time and effort and for all the phone calls and email exchange. It's been very helpful.
It's the least I could do. So it's been a real honor to serve with you.
Thank you.
Or is there any public comment, Carol?
No, Chair Stedman. And thank you from me for chairing us these last years, I guess. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for all of your support, Carol, especially the day that we lost power. And we were on the phone quite frequently that day. That was a rather exciting.
Yeah,
but
I would like to not remember that day.
And John Doimus, Attorney Doimus, thank you for everything. I feel well supported and was always confident that you were not only in the foreground, but always in the background. So thank you very much, and good luck in your healing process and your rehabilitation.
Thank you, Chair Stedman. I really appreciate it. And thank you again, Carol said, for your service to the community. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're all welcome. All right, here we are, item number 13, adjournment. Is there a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Carol, can you do a roll voice call?
Sure. I'm going to show my holiday cheer. Chair Stedman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rodriguez,
Yes.
Chair Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Travis Teague.
Aye.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Carol. We stand
Holiday
adjourned.
blessings to all of you.
Thank
And
you,
to you, Carol.
everybody.
Thank you.
I'll
Happy
see
holidays,
everyone soon.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.